And this school, basically of Marxists and Socialists, then basically addresses itself to the issues of culture and society, critical theory, theoretical pursuits, cultural theory, social culture, the culture of society, the society of culture, and sociology, social anthropology, and such like things. And this legitimizes its subsequent influence and take, because once you're accredited, it's a very important step any institution to do and take and be accepted. Once you're accredited by the university system, then you have access to the whole world of academia. So you have world influence, not just local, not just amongst socialists. You then begin to influence the university system worldwide by sort of general leakage across the boundaries, of all kinds of fields. And what I'm maintaining here, that this is the historical route. The disappointed Marxists forming themselves into an institution which becomes accredited, which becomes attached to the universities in Germany, the academia worldwide, and influences, just like the Bauhaus, say, influences the Chicago School of Architecture, that kind of thing, and the college where Joseph Albers, it's a Black Mountain College, and that kind of influence, quite legitimate, open to all. In fact, anybody can do this track if they want, get themselves accredited, form an institution, a think tank, and so on and so forth, and into the world of worldwide influence of academia. It's a competitive world. Why not? And why forbid it? However, in the absence of any other cultural institutionalized input, this organized thought pattern, it's not a plot or a conspiracy necessarily. They're just that other groups have not so influenced, but you might need to wonder about the motivations of universities worldwide in taking up this particular set of accreditation and influence and not others, because I do wonder, when I've done media studies and art history and here at art school, why the frameworks of Marxism and feminism, for some reason Marxism has always been a little feminist and so on, and say ecofeminism maybe coming that way, are the allowable frameworks for examining various things, art historical things and cultural things and so on and so forth, art things even, but not others. Why not have all the possible potential frameworks on the table equally, if you like, or give various historical and other rankings to them if you like, and different emphases, but at least speak of the possibility in lectures and articles and so on, and always speak your Marxist viewpoint in the light of these other things, and address them as legitimate areas and frameworks. Like the framework of, say, a religious framework, or a conservative framework, or a traditional framework, or a democratic framework, or a liberal, a moderate, humanist, liberal framework. Or even, dare we say it, a business framework, an economic framework, a political framework, just general politics. How does this flow through, these cultural attitudes flow through into policy? politics is about policy. And even, again, dare I say it, a masculist answer to feminism framework, or a capitalist framework, a person who's completely and totally unashamed of capitalism's influence on the world, and presenting that as a framework for examining positively, not negatively, not saying, well, it's all under suspicion. After all, it's the Rockefellers, capitalists, if ever there were, who found the Museum of Modern Art in 1930. Well, his wife, but you can imagine where the money comes from. And the people and contact groups that both he and his wife were aware of, putting their money in, their influence and their will and their power and their contacts into the possibility of the foundation of the Museum of Modern Art. So this is also the origins of political correctness, critical theory and cultural theory, social anthropology, sociology, anthropology in general, linguistics. This Frankfurt School has had an influence on all of these things, and as I say, out of all proportion to, because of the absence of these other points of view on the table. Each student, if he has another point of view, or she has another point of view, has to invent entirely on their own these other frameworks to put into the mix, as I've had to do. And of course you tend to get C's and F's and D's and B's and things for that, because the lecturer doesn't understand it. They only understand a Marxist or feminist or environmental whatever point of view. Those two things in the main, Marxism and feminism. And the others are, as it were, disallowed. Now, we've met this kind of monolithic structure before in the Catholic Church and in the Communist Party and National Socialism. And National Socialism and International Socialism are very akin to each other. Both have uniforms, both have emblems, both have are workers' parties, both are socialistically minded, National Socialism, International Socialism. Both have arbitrary arrest, apprehension, and various targeted hate groups. The Jews in one case, Jews and business people or something like that. Landlords in the other, maybe. Arbitrary arrest, guilt by accusation. The same things as the French Revolution and Marat Sade. No, not Marat Sade, but Marquis de Sade is a similar period, sort of the spirit of that age. Both have concentration camps. Both have railroad trains full of prisoners, huge long anonymous lists, death and guilt, arrest, imprisonment, lifelong slavery by anonymous accusation. There's no freedom in either of these things in their extreme forms. You have the Holocaust in one case, and you have the Gulag in another. Concentration camps, large scale death, the death of its own citizens under its control, Germany was, 5, 6, 7, 8 million. I remember as a boy the figure for the Holocaust was 4 million. It's grown to 6 million by now. I don't know how it's grown to that number. My grandfather was captured at Dunkirk, and when he was released 4 or 5 years later, with the overrunning of Germany and the stalag he was staying at, by the time he had got back to England, he was 6 stone. Now his normal body weight would have been 9 or 10, and even 11 or 12 stone would have been quite okay. So he was half his perfectly healthy body weight. Now there must have been some time when he remained in the stalag, being attended to by British Army doctors and British Army food people and so on and so forth. It would have taken some organising, because Hitler's Germany was in total disarray. They were in defeat, in retreat, and probably had abandoned the prisoners weeks before. They needed medical treatment, they needed documentation, they needed processing, they needed assessing for medical reasons, and they probably were fed up, not fed up in that other sense, but given food to increase their body weight. So it was possible he was down to 5 stone. That's my assessment. But he turns up in England at 6 stone, say a month later, 6 weeks later. You know how British Army bureaucracy could work in those years, all on paper. IBM was in Germany, but I don't think the British had taken up the IBM kind of tabulation system. So I think that a lot of people in his camp, British prisoners of war, would have died, because even getting a cold when you're 5 stone can blow you away, can kill you. Just simple diseases, basic diseases, malnutrition, lack of heat, anything. The death rate in those camps, what I'm saying is those last few months of Germany's collapse, in my grandfather's camp, must have been horrendous. The proportion being very high, I should think. I wouldn't be surprised if 20% who had survived up to that stage died in those last few months, just through perfectly ordinary things, because he would have been 5 stone, 5.5 stone, and that is real skin and bone stuff. And the picture I have of him at 6 stone is pretty pathetic. I mean, he doesn't seem to stand up inside the suit he's in. And I look very much like him. So one wonders about the particular viciousness of National Socialism when it just really war conditions in Germany at the time. Because nobody's ever accused the Germans of particularly dishonourable treatment of British prisoners of war, and yet that body weight loss did occur to my grandfather. I can see it in a photograph. That is my evidence. So I do wonder about that whole large question. But nevertheless, National Socialists and International Socialists are guilty of exactly the same things. And if anything, the International Socialists are far, far worse with the death toll from Joseph Stalin. In peacetime, no excuse. There was no treason because they weren't at war with anybody, just a cold war. And combine that with Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, Fidel Castro, Kim Il-sung today. I mean, well, okay, he's died now, but and when you consider the death toll of the French Revolution, these guys, why would anybody want anything to do with them? It beats me. And I suggest, if you think about it, unless you're somehow got a very cruel streak in you, very hard attitude to humanity. I can't see how anybody would have anything to do with them. The crimes committed in the name of the people, the mob, are appalling by a long way. There is not a... You have to go back to Genghis Khan or really horrible people in history to find their like. And these actions are completely cemented in with that ideology. There is no separation from it whatsoever. You go to communist websites on the net today, and they're gladly, blithely, happily talking about eradicating this class and that class and so on and so on and so forth. Today, they're still doing it. I don't know how anybody with any sense, with any brains, with any honesty, with any heart, with any feeling, with any art or any culture can have anything to do with these things. And yet here we have a Marxist, socialist and feminist viewpoint coming through in art theory and in cultural studies, linguistics, social anthropology, sociology, media studies, critical theory, art theory, and so on. This is mad. This is absolutely mad. I don't think a single dollar of anybody's money, the broad general public, should be gone towards these things to any extent at all. Zero. Let them pay for their own thought pattern. They're allowed to have it, but I don't think the rest of us should pay for such death-dealing ideology. These guys are murderers. And, the history, the proof, the evidence is self-explanatory. We don't need to have any other consideration, just to consider the Gulag and the Holocaust, National Socialism, International Socialism, all of them in their day considered progressive movements. Mussolini, for 12 years before the Second World War, was considered to be a progressive, along with the Marxists, the Communists, the Mensheviks, the moderates, and so on and so forth. He was considered one of them. He looked like them, they behaved together, they went on marches, not together, but they, on the screen or in publications, there was hardly a difference. Big statism, to me, big state and big government, with its coercive, compulsive